The Sound Off Podcast. The show about podcast and broadcast. Starts now.
Josie Fenech is the National Talent Development Director for Stingray and Program Director at Hot 89.9 in Ottawa. She was part of the morning hot tub with Mahler, Rush, Jenny, and Brady up until 2019 before she was unceremoniously launched from a cannon and moved upstairs to management full-time. No, really. That happened.
Brady, you ready?
This is it? This is just the end?
Well, she said if we shoot her out the cannon, she's off the show. She's gone. That's what she's saying. Is that what you're saying down there?
That's what I'm saying.
All right, shoot her. Shoot her.
Bye. Well, bye, Josie.
Bye.
Oh.
What did she hit?
What was that?
That might have been the water tower.
The Almont water tower. She had her helmet on?
Yeah. She had the helmet.
And the goggles.
I think you brought the helmet.
I'm sure she's fine.
Mahler, Rush, and Jenny. The Morning Hot Tub.
I will never understand people.
The new Hot 89.9.
Josie has been doing talent development at Stingray for 7 years, so if you're looking at advancing your on-air career, or even starting one, this episode's a good place to start. Josie Fenech joins me from the Stingray offices in Ottawa, Ontario. Do you always want to be in radio?
No.
Really?
No, I'm not one of those people. I've lived with that guilt throughout my entire radio career.
Because you went to Humber.
Yes. It was a fluke. I kind of fell into radio. I wanted to be an actress.
Oh.
Yeah. I actually wanted to be an actress. I'll tell this story briefly, but it's pretty cool if you believe in the universe and how it can show you signs as to what you're supposed to be doing in your life. I took acting lessons outside of school through high school. Jennifer was my acting teacher. The end of high school came and I had to decide what I was going to do with my life, and I didn't really know. I knew I liked to help people. I thought, okay, I'll go and take psych. And my mom ran into my former drama teacher in the grocery store, as one does in Almont, Ontario, very small town. And Jen said, "Oh, how's Josie doing?" "Oh, great. She's applying for, psych and this and the other thing." And Jen goes, "What? What is she doing? She can't be doing that. She's gonna perform. She's gonna be on a stage somewhere." And so at the time I was taking a gap year, I was working at Mrs. Tiggy Winkle's in Ottawa, a toy store. And my mom gave Jen my phone number. I got home from work one day and there was this long message on my old school tape recorder answering machine from my former drama teacher saying, "Josie, you won't be doing yourself justice if you don't follow your heart and perform in some aspect. You have to try." And I just never really, I did think at one point that I could do it, and then that dream kind of fades. So she honestly changed the course of my life. So then I applied for theater programs. I applied for television and radio. And I didn't get into any of the theater programs. And I got into Humber. And that's how my radio career got started.
Do you think broadcasting is the opposite of being an actor or actress? Because you have to play the role of something as an actor or actress, but in broadcasting, the goal is to be yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's much different. It's definitely different. What I love about radio is, you get to be authentic, but you do also have, I think, an obligation to only show certain parts, if you will, for yourself and for the audience. You might not want to share every aspect of your life with your audience, but then also, especially with the radio that I got into, which is CHR, I really felt like it was my responsibility to set people off on the right foot every morning. And so I only wanted to show them my most positive, brightest self, hoping that would be contagious and that, they would feel this good energy in the morning. And so, I think, being in radio, you are yourself, but you turn up the best parts of your personality to share with your audience.
So after you graduate from Humber, the first two stations, I think you went to Z1035 and KISS. That's a good start.
Yeah, no kidding. I know. I got so lucky. Oh, man. I had a horseshoe at my butt. I truly did. I was working for Skywards Traffic. I started with them my second year of Humber. I had to come home, get all the money together that I had saved, buy myself a car because I was driving to Jane and Finch to report on Toronto traffic every morning at 5 a.m. and then go to school through the day. I didn't want to take the bus to Jane and Finch. So I did that, worked for Skywards. That was great. Wasn't from Toronto. Had the map of Toronto on my dorm room wall and was trying to memorize all the roads and how they went, and so that I could actually report on the traffic and sound like I knew what I was talking about. And then I was doing traffic for Z1035. You know, my second year was coming to an end, and they said, hey, why don't you come and do mornings with us? Okay. So I did that. Yeah, I did mornings for just about a year with Scott Fox. And then Rogers called, and Julie Adam, who says no to Julie. And yeah, she hired me for middays on KISS.
So that wasn't the only interest you had. And I know that because I was across the hallway from some people at Standard Radio who might have come looking for you at a particular point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting you to talk out of turn here a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah.
You had more than one offer.
I did. Yeah. Yeah. But I botched that audition.
Really?
Yeah. They wanted me until I auditioned for them. And it was a mess, but a very good learning experience, because I'm not naming any names. It may sound like I'm blaming someone. I'm not, but they put me in on an overnight on a board I wasn't familiar with, on a station I wasn't super familiar with, and said, okay, go. Do your thing, work your magic. And nerves took over, didn't feel confident on the board, and I wasn't good. And I shouldn't have gotten the job from that audition. As a programmer now, as a PD of a radio station, if anyone is auditioning for me, or if I take on an intern and they want to do overnights, I give them all the training they want and need until they are 1,000% comfortable on that board and ready to kind of take that leap and do it themselves, because no one should be judged, I think, in a situation where they're feeling uncomfortable.
How did you get to Ottawa?
Well, I got canned from KISS when they flipped to Jack. So I ended up only there for under a year. We all got taken up to I think we were on the 4th floor, and we got taken up to the 5th floor, or vice versa. And everybody was there. These were all the cues. And then Julie came in with the guy from HR in the box of envelopes. And we were all looking at each other. We were all pretty young. And yeah, okay, in an hour, we're flipping to Jack FM. Oh my God. And I'm in my early 20s, and I think this is it. This is the end. And they gave me a taxi chit to get home, and they walked us down to the lobby. It was also, I'm like, what do you think I'm going to do? I couldn't even go back and get my stuff. They had to go get it for me. Anyways, went home, cried a lot. Then, the next day, put my resume together, tried to get back out there. No one in Toronto was hiring. So I went to Europe for a couple months. I went backpacking. They did give me a very generous package, considering I was there for less than a year. And I took that money and went with 2 girlfriends, and it was the best thing I could have done for myself, because when I got fired, the world felt very small. And when I went to Europe, it gave me this great perspective that the world is big, and so are opportunities, and I need to think outside. Toronto is not it, although it felt like that at the time, that anywhere outside of Toronto would be taking a step back. I do feel that has changed very much now. People favor comfort, cost of living, green space, a lot of the times now in our industry over Toronto. I've been in a scenario where we've offered some major market opportunities to people who are in medium and small markets, and they're like, no, you know what? I'm good. Anyhow, it wasn't like that at the time. And so when I got back from traveling, that's when I started throwing my resume out to radio stations outside of Toronto. And Hot 89.9 was a brand new CHR in my hometown. Rob Mize was programming it at the time and called me up. He said, yeah, come down for an interview.
Who owned the station then?
New Cap. Yeah. Yeah. They were in an LSA with Standard. So we were in the Bear building. We shared a building with the Bear. And those early days were pretty awesome.
Good. I needed my memory jogged because I made a few trips up to Merivale Road at the time, and I remember now there was an LMA involved. Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, so I did that interview with Rob, and he said, okay, great. Well, it was really nice to meet you. Don't have anything for you, but take care, and I'll be in touch if anything comes up. I was a little disappointed, and I was driving home to my parents' basement, which is where I was crashing at the time. And he called me on my way home, and I opened up my little flip phone. At the time, it wasn't illegal, I don't think, to be on your phone in the car. Anyway, open up my flip phone. Yeah, Rob Mize, I might have something for you after all. And this was close to Christmas. Could you fill in for me over Christmas? Yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. I'm going to put you on here, and Christmas morning at 6 a.m. Okay. Humble pill swallowed. Okay, yep, I'll be there. He was testing me, and I understand that now. And I passed the test and ended up getting full-time work after that.
And what precipitated the jump to mornings?
Well, at one point, I was just the yes person. What do you need? Yep, I'll do it. What do you need? Yep, I'll do it. So at one point, I was doing entertainment on the morning show. I was the music director and also doing the evening show. And I don't remember how long I did that for, maybe a year. Those were some long days, but I absolutely loved every minute of it. And then eventually he hired someone else for the evenings, and I kind of became more of like a full-time morning show host and music director, and then APD, and then eventually PD, all within a couple years of being there.
And what was it like working with Mahler and Rush?
Oh, man. Silly, honestly. Just...
And all the way to 2019. This is not just some sort of stint. I mean, you did this for a long time, and often you did it as their program director too, which is weird.
Yes, that was a hard transition when I became the program director and was managing people older than me with more experience. That was not easy.
And working on the air with them at the same time?
Yes. Just to add another layer of complication.
Okay, so listen, there are people who are listening to this who are in that scenario. What advice can you offer for managing through that?
Well, you definitely cannot come in all guns a-blazing. You have to sit back, and you really just have to earn their trust and their respect. It's a slow and steady approach. Small tweaks here and there, believing that you got the job for a reason. And that you have something to offer, always kind of grounding yourself in that. And then just pushing forward inch by inch, slow and steady, really, I think is the best advice.
So building trust, right?
Yeah.
I get the feeling that 10 a.m., maybe 2 minutes after the show is over, is not the best time to be bringing up a serious issue.
No. No, definitely not. Yeah. So just need a minute. Yeah.
By the way, that break that we did at 7:30, where were you going with that bit? Oh, and I'm asking as the program director, not as the co-host.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, everyone was really good at kind of checking themselves. Everyone had a very high standard set for themselves. And, they knew when things were going off the rails or if something didn't quite hit. There wasn't really formal air checks. Couldn't do that with them. Couldn't pull that off given this scenario. So it was more about discussions.
Take me back to the first 3 years of the show. It really does take 3 years for a good show to become great. And this is a show, by the way, that a lot of American radio stations look towards in Canada as being, this is the benchmark for great radio. So what were some of the things that happened in the first 3 years that you did to take it from good to great?
We tried everything. We were allowed to make mistakes. We were allowed to take big risks. NewCap gave us all of the freedom, all of the autonomy to just try anything. And I don't think very many people are afforded that. And I 100% think that's what led to our success, is that we were allowed to kind of just try try anything that came to mind, and had full support and full promotion. It was really incredible. I mean, the things that we did, plus it was a young staff. We were all so dedicated. We all worked around the clock. We lived there essentially and really felt like we were connecting. So that feeds the momentum, right? So everything we did, people are showing up. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. And then it's bigger, and then it's bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And we're doing all these massive promotions, and we're, shutting down roads. And it's like, holy cow. We were also building trust with our audience. We followed through on everything we said we were going to do, except for one scenario where the plastic surgeon had to pull out because he was going to lose his license. But other than that, we followed through on every crazy idea that we had. So we built trust with our audience, and we still have that. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary here at Hot, and the notes that we get on a weekly basis from our audience. I've been listening for 10 years. I've been listening for 15 years. Oh, you guys, we have formed such a deep connection with our audience. And it started back then when if we said we were going to do something, we did it. And again, the autonomy and being allowed to fulfill all of our kind of crazy ideas, I think is what led to our pretty quick success within those first 3 years. And I'm glad you mentioned the 3 years, Matt, because there's so many new shows that get together and are expected to deliver, on ratings in the first 6 months, year. No, you don't even start looking at that until the 3-year mark. You're building a show. You're building the chemistry. You're building the confidence. You're building the brand. You can't judge them before the 3-year mark. This stuff takes time.
I wish I could take credit for coming up with that, but I had Valerie Geller on the show and I asked her to explain to me why it takes 3 years.
If somebody said to you, I want to grow tomatoes, and you would say, okay, so it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks to get the seedlings to sprout. Then you put them in the ground or in pots, and then it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks before they sprout into plants. And then it's going to take a few more weeks before you see any fruit. If you told that to somebody or you read a gardening book, everybody would go, yeah, okay, right. That's what it is. It just takes what it takes. It takes 9 months to gestate a human being in a womb, right? You can't speed up the process. It takes the time it takes. Going on a diet, trying to lose weight. You want to keep that weight off. It's going to take week by week by week, slow go, lose the weight, right? So why is it that when we know for sure that when you want to get audiences to change habits and follow you, that it's going to take day after day after day, week after week, month after month, product, permanence, promotion, do a compelling show, be a unique voice, offer your audience something they can't get elsewhere. Do it consistently with high quality over time, and finally let them know where they can find it. Now, one of the reasons why, and this really opened up the world for me, and I write about it in Beyond Powerful Radio, it takes 1,000 times of repeated behavior before a human being can rewire his or her brain to change a habit. The result of that research was it takes 1,000 times of repeating behavior before humans can rehabituate. You can change behavior immediately, but to rewire your brain so it's wrong if you don't do it, and it feels right when you do it, that's 1,000 times. And 1,000 days is 3 years.
Podcast supports Podcasting 2.0. So feel free to send us a boost if you're listening on a newer podcast app. If you don't have a newer podcast app, you can get one at newpodcastapps.com.
You said massive promotions.
Yes.
Paige Nienaber.
Yeah. He was a big part of that.
New Cap gave you the tools. He's a big tool.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, and Rob Mize too deserves massive amount of credit. He was kind of like a mad scientist behind the curtain. again, it was his kind of we can do anything mentality that set us off on the right course, and we all believed it. And so, yeah, and Rob and Paige with his also, mad scientist ways, it was kind of the perfect storm of people who had the wild ideas and then people who could execute those wild ideas. Because obviously, if you don't have the strength and talent or the strength in promotions and, great, you can have the idea, but it's going to fall flat if you don't have the people to execute it. So we had both.
So one of the things that when the station launched that I saw, would the station be able to overcome being at 89.9? I know that seems ridiculous by today's standards, the way we say it, but it's way down the left of the dial. Back in the day when the station was launching, it's 2003. A lot of people had, it was a tuner. It wasn't necessarily digital in every vehicle. Was that an obstacle that came up when the station launched? It's a little bit down the dial. It's a little bit to the left.
So I wasn't there when the station launched. I came in a year later. So I can't say necessarily, but I do think that they came in. I mean, it came in as a rhythmic CHR. And at the time, it was the height of, 50 Cent, Eminem, Ja Rule, Ashanti, Nelly. So it came into Ottawa and made so much noise that no, I don't think it was an issue because people, they understood the assignment. Oh, this is where I can get this music. Okay. I'm finding 89.9. No problem. Yeah.
And they can hear hit music half the time.
That's right. Oh, good old Ottawa Gatineau. Yeah.
So only you and I are going to know what we're talking about here. But there, for many, many years, up until just about a year ago, there was a hit non-hit rule, which meant that a top 40 radio station could only play 49.9% hit music. The rest of it had to be material that charted below 40 on Billboard or whatever Canadian chart was being, put out that week. How'd you manage?
Oh, man. I mean, again, the thing is that especially in those early years, our only competition really was other radio stations in the city who were playing by the exact same rules. So at least it was an even playing ground there. Obviously not so much anymore, but it is gone now, just as of last December. Honestly, Matt, I've had conversations with people and there would be people even within my own company who disagree with this. But you know what? Maybe the fact that we had to get on newer music so early before it became a hit, maybe the fact that we had to, play perhaps some more obscure Canadian acts, maybe that was all part of the secret sauce. Maybe that led to us being a market leader and led to our success. It's not the way that most people go. You play the hits, and you play them often. We had to take a different path, and maybe it actually helped us and didn't always hurt us.
So we had the same thing in Montreal. I was working alongside Mix 96 at the time, CHR radio station, and the pattern, and Pat Holliday, by the way, pointed this out in his YouTube tutorials of how to be a program director, and he learned a lot from this. And that's getting on the hit songs early.
Yeah.
And then maybe you pull back a little bit when they enter the chart, and then you can ramp them up again a little bit later. And to no end, it would annoy and tick off the record company.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean you're cutting the spins? Well, we're doing our own thing here.
Kind of have to. Yeah. You figure out a way to do it. So, I mean, for us, what we ended up doing is we would always have a Canadian in our Power International. And that helped both with the non-hit as well as our 40% CanCon requirement. But yeah, I mean, it was just, it's all we ever knew. So it honestly wasn't a huge deal.
So the chains are off. You must have popped some champagne. And now I can play whatever I want to play pretty much on the CHR station in Ottawa, and for those in Montreal as well. And we're taking a look at CHR today, and it is nothing like we've ever seen before. What is the state of CHR radio today? It feels like there's fewer hits. I don't recognize the Billboard charts.
Yeah, exactly. Where are the core artists?
Why is Morgan Wallen there? What's going on? And Taylor Swift is as big as the Beatles. So I'm over 50. What's happening?
I mean, obviously our streaming services and the power of TikTok have had their influence. We've definitely seen that over the last couple of years where, yes, to your point, these artists that are not as well known are having these massive radio hits. We may only hear from them once and never again. Playing something or an artist that's unfamiliar is like, well, yeah, it's unfamiliar, but now it's not because people recognize it from TikTok. And so I don't think it's never going to be the same. I don't think we're ever going to have those core artists the way that we used to. We have these discussions every week in our music meeting, and it is always a decision based on data, yes. And then, of course, our own experience, our own testing, if we have it, and our gut. And, sometimes there's a little bit of even locality factored in there. I do think that essentially CHRs are pretty much the same no matter where you are. But sometimes, we may play a certain artist a little more here in Ottawa for reasons, X, Y, and Z. But yeah, the state of CHR right now is so interesting. It used to be very cyclical, right? Okay, we're in a rhythmic phase. Okay, we're leaning a little more pop rock, right? Okay, and now it's everything all the time. I mean, country's definitely having a moment right now. We're playing the Morgan Wallen and we're playing the Luke Combs. But again, we're a top 40 radio station. So if it's a pop culture song, if it's having a moment, if it's super popular, we should be on it, regardless of the genre.
So your audience would likely need, 600 spins of a song to really, wrap its arms around it and embrace it. And you don't really have that sort of time.
A lot of songs we play never make it to 600 spins.
Well, how does that work?
I mean, even for it to go into testing, the recommendation is you wouldn't put anything in testing without a minimum of 250 spins. And still that's pretty early. It's tough. I mean, you try to predict songs that are going to go the distance. You mentioned this earlier about how, songs used to ride up from, a light category to a medium to a power and then to a recurrent. So now what we're doing is, it'll kind of go from a light, medium, power, and then back down to a medium, potentially back down. So we are staying on these songs a little bit longer. We've talked about, adding in a little more gold for the familiarity's sake, right? Because sometimes when the playlist just feels too new with too many unknown artists, we want to make sure that, we have the spoke of the wheel where we're playing like big familiar hit, newer artist, big familiar hit. It's we've changed. We fiddle with our clocks and try to figure out the science behind it.
It's wild. It sounds like the Wild West of music. Mm-hmm. The music department used to be doing laundry, where you take it, wash it, dry it, fold it, put it away, and now it feels like you're constantly. It feels like you're now managing a pot of soup, where you're adding stuff to the soup, you're serving the soup, you're taking stuff. We're going to put. It's like one bowl of soup that is constantly going.
Yes. Well, and the other thing too, Matt, is, and I don't even know, I'm so bad at judging years because they all blend together. But when did this start? Maybe 5 years ago, where artists would release multiple songs within a month. And so, we're playing we've got 3 Justin Biebers in our current category, or Ed Sheeran's, or Olivia Rodrigo has this massive hit right now. What is she doing on Friday? Releasing another one. Vampire still has such a long runway, and here she's releasing her next single already. I believe that's for the streaming world. That's not how radio used to work. The labels had control. They would release the radio single. They'd let that go as long as it possibly could. then they would release the next one. So now on top of all of this different music we have to play by these different artists, we're getting multiple tracks from the same artist. And we also have to figure that out and how we're going to have the right artist separation. And then we can't play their recurrent hits. So we might have to, take them out of recurrent, because then you have 4 or 5 Olivia Rodrigos. And
does recurrent even exist anymore?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you get Taylor Swift tickets?
I did. It was intense.
Are you a verified fan?
Yes. I registered. I got the email Tuesday that I was a verified fan. I got the code via text yesterday. So this is how fun. I love my colleagues. So yesterday I had a little support group virtually. It was John Downey was on there, Zach Bedford, Jen Dalen. They all got on to watch me try to secure these tickets. And they were all going to be there to pick up the pieces if I didn't do it. John Downey specifically is like the grand master at securing tickets. So he helped me and talked me through it. And I got tickets. I can't believe it. Everyone in our company registered. And I was the only one to get to be a verified fan. I don't know. Lightning in a bottle. I have to go buy a lottery ticket.
Why does Taylor Swift come off as so polarizing?
That's a head scratcher. I don't know. Any brand manager would tell you, BJ Buenos would, his famous line is, in order to be a brand that some people will love, you have to be a brand that some people will hate. And I'd rather be that than be somewhere in the middle, mediocre. Oh yeah, they're fine.
Bruce Springsteen at Rock never tested well.
Right.
Yet he's selling out 2 nights in Montreal, 40,000 people.
Yeah.
But Born to Run sucks.
Go figure.
I mean, the two things aren't the same thing. I mean, back in the day when there was physical records being sold, well, the record's selling really well. Well, our radio station isn't really interested in your record sales. We're not here to sell records. We're here to entertain an audience with a song.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And again, sometimes it's being a part of that pop culture moment.
Where are your seats?
I'm in the 100 level.
Wow.
Yeah.
You do realize you're going to have to contain the excitement for like well over a year.
Well, I know. Well, and this is why I haven't told my daughter. So my daughter is going to be 9 next month. And this is going to be, a mummy-daughter event. And I'm just like, sends shivers through my body thinking about doing this with her. She's never been to a concert before, obviously. She's very young. I just took my son to his first concert. Yeah, I'm tingling. I cannot wait. But I haven't told her, and she hasn't asked.
And your secret is safe so long as she doesn't listen to this podcast.
Right? Yeah, I have to make sure she doesn't listen to this, Matt. Sorry.
In 2019, you were shot out of a cannon, launched off the show. Yeah. What was it like to take that step from doing a morning show every day to, I don't have to do this morning show every day, and I'm going to be working with talent?
It was great.
And programming.
Yeah, it was great. Obviously people who listened to the morning show had no idea that I was programming the radio station. We never talked about that. And I still think a lot of people that I meet are confused by it. If they were a fan of the show, they think I got a demotion. They're like, are you okay? It was time. When I came off the show, I had started I was PDing Flow. So I was going back and forth to Toronto on a weekly basis. So on, Mondays I was coming in here. I was in here by 4 a.m. to pre-record my morning show bits and then get on a plane at 6 and head to Toronto. It was a lot. My career, where I want it to go, like obviously being on air was a ton of fun, but that was one of those things where I was so fortunate that I got to have a hobby as part of my career. I didn't have to go outside of my career for my hobby. My hobby was doing entertainment on the morning show. My career was programming the radio station and now also, working with talent. And so how wonderful and privileged I was to be able to do all of that under one roof. But yeah, I got to the point where I was ready to kind of give up that. and make room for other far more talented people than me, like Brady, who is now the fourth member of the morning show. And the morning show has undoubtedly gotten better because of him and me stepping away. So you also have to know that, you have to have enough self-awareness to go, okay, this thing is a freight train right now. And I want it to continue to propel itself, and getting in new, wildly talented blood was definitely the right call.
Things do come around full circle. You wanted to start out as an actor. That involves a lot of auditions. And now you're working with talent. You're finding talent. You're managing them. What do you look for in a demo?
Personality. Yeah. Personality. And then creativity, obviously. Personality and creativity. And then the demo is really such a small piece. It's the email more than the demo. Honestly, it's the communication more than it is that 3-minute reel. It is how did you communicate to me in your email? What kind of personality came out there? When I talk with you on the phone, how natural is it? What can I hear your passion? Can I hear your excitement? Do you sound like you'd be a fun person to be around? Do you sound like you'd come in here and could raise a team up? Many people have heard this. You hire 90% on attitude. The other 10% can be figured out, trained, coached, whatever.
Tell me about the skill set between doing live radio and doing voice tracked radio. I know they're different skill sets. Can you separate the two? Because I'm good at one, but suck at another. I just knew that about myself.
Really?
Yeah.
Which one were you good at? Live?
I was good at live.
Why did you suck at tracking?
I felt it was a different skill set that needed to be taught. Some breaks work in live moments and some don't. I think it's like you look at a comedian like Sugar Sammy, who gets up and he interacts with the audience. He also understood live radio. And I worked with Sugar Sammy. In Montreal, we did live radio together, and he came to Winnipeg. He did a week on the air with me at Power 97. And he just had this thing for working in a live environment, whether it was phones and interaction and blinking lights.
Yes.
The moment we are on. Mm-hmm. And then you go into the box down the hall and nothing.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I also, tracked back in the day at KISS and definitely suffered from the same thing. I think what helps trackers now is obviously the technology. The setup is so much better. We have 5 full-time remote hosts. We have, a lot of network tracking, obviously, and that's what they do. And their setups are great. So they can play audio, they can take calls, they have access to texting platforms and whatnot. So they can have that interaction. And also, I think when we, listen to tape and chat about their performance, to me, what will make a track feel live is the insertion of, again, their personality. So I think so many trackers will go into a booth with all of this prep and treat it more like a formulaic job. Sit down, do this. I've got the prep. I know how to introduce this song and this song. And they lose that kind of organic, in the moment, spontaneous insertion of, oh, you know what? And so I have them do that. Like, if I'm chatting with a host and this happened recently where she had this mug that said something and there was a little story behind it. And I said, have you talked about that on the air yet? And she goes, no. I said, okay, so how do you insert that into one of your tracks? It's like, oh my gosh. Oh, I just took a sip. Sorry. 1 minute. Okay. Sorry. Just swallowing my coffee there. That song came to an end really quickly. And actually, funny story. I pulled this mug out of the cupboard this morning and then launched into that. Right. So yes, this is where there's more acting involved. Again, going back to that, at the beginning you said, what is the difference? Is it opposite, acting and being a radio host? I think when you're tracking, you're maybe doing a little more acting. And you're kind of acting like it was, that song just snuck up on me. Never mind, this is the 3rd time I've recorded this track. But, you have to be able to sell that in the moment feeling. That's what a good tracker does.
And by the way, some of my favorite radio shows that I listen to are voice tracked.
Right.
They sound great, and they sound better than the live people. So I'm not a big fan of, hearing people saying, well, voice tracking. It's just no, because some of them are really, really good.
So good. The people, again, like always, with a high amount of care and production, I think, is another element that if you are tracking and you are not using that opportunity to have a fully and masterfully produced show with audio, you're leaving so much on the dance floor. Come on, produce your show. Oh well, and for live shows as well. I think production is a lost art. And I think nothing can enhance a radio show like someone who is on top of audio clips and sound effects and the right bed for the right moment, use it as an exclamation mark for whatever message you're trying to get across.
I know you listen to radio across the country, maybe even around the world. Do talent get enough feedback?
No.
If you're talent, how can you get feedback if your programmer isn't giving you feedback? What can you do to get some feedback?
You reach out to other programmers. I mean, I have tons of people emailing me asking if I have some time to listen to tape. And I really appreciate that they're doing that. I think, honestly, I bet you 75% of the programmers in our industry here in Canada, if they got an email, would happily listen and give feedback, even if that person worked for a competing company. Ultimately, I want our competitors to be strong because that's good for our industry. I don't want them to be as strong as we are, obviously. But I also, the stronger they are, the stronger we will get. The more challenged we are, the better our output. So I want the industry to be very, very strong and healthy for everyone's sake. It's the only way we will survive. So helping each other out like that, I think, is a good thing. But that's the advice I would give. Yeah. Reach out to other programmers.
I'm excited that you say that because in 2013, I began to recognize that radio needed to band together in order to solve some of its problems. And I don't think we're there yet. Perhaps the problem we're having right now with Facebook and Google might bring us a little bit closer. I know you've got some radio stations that are having their content suppressed. What are some of the strategies that run through your head in order to end around some of the suppression issues?
Well, I mean, yes, I think, I know that we are talking to other companies and we are trying to band together for the betterment of the industry. I mean, strategy wise, thankfully we're not a news station, but I know that we're still at risk. We have to be very thoughtful about the type of content that we put on socials. Could it be perceived as news? There's more scrutiny now, but that has also always been there. We obviously have to be very, very careful. We put so much energy and thoughtfulness into our socials, and truthfully, not even having anything that is able to tell us if there's any correlation at all between being successful on socials and ratings. Yeah, we do, because it's where people live and we want to be where people live, or where they play. We want to be where people play. So yeah, I think it's just constant communication with your team, scrutinizing what you do, scrutinizing the intention behind it. But for me, anyway, we are, we're kind of in a silo here, doing our own thing and making sure that we dodge these bullets.
Josie, thanks so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. It was so nice to see you at RDNA. I was about to say CMW, but RDNA this year. It was really, really wonderful, and I'm really honored to be invited onto your show. Thank you.
You know you're missed at Morning Show Boot Camp, right?
Yeah.
That was Don Anthony says hello.
Oh, nice. Oh, really? Oh, my gosh. Oh, geez.
The Sound Off Podcast is written and hosted by Matt Kundle. Produced by Evan Serminski. Edited by Chloe Emo Lane. Social media by Aiden Glassy. Another great creation from the Sound Off Media Company. There's always more at soundoffpodcast.com.